Most people don't lose their wealth in one catastrophic moment. They bleed out slowly. A bad habit here, a lazy assumption there, a financial decision that seemed totally reasonable at the time. And 10 years later, they're wondering why their net worth looks the same as it did in 2019. That's what actually kills wealth, not market crashes, not bad luck. The quiet, compounding damage of traps you didn't even know you were walking into. Here are 10 of them. Trap 10, treating your income like your net worth. High income is not wealth. I want to say that louder for the people in the back. Earning $200,000 a year while spending $195,000 a year means you are one bad month away from broke, period. The Federal Reserve's 2023 survey of consumer finances found that the median American family had just $8,000 in liquid savings. 8,000. That's not a poor family statistic. That's the median across all income levels. Your paycheck is a tool. It is not the finish line. The people who actually build lasting net worth are the ones who treat their income as a launchpad, not an identity. Every time you conflate what you earn with what you're worth, you make decisions that look like wealth and perform like poverty. The fix is brutally simple. Track your net worth monthly, not your salary. Make that the number you obsess over. Trap 9, paying credit card interest. Ever. This one isn't controversial. Credit card interest at 22, 24, sometimes 29% APR is one of the most destructive financial forces in America right now. The Federal Reserve reported in 2024 that total U.S. credit card debt crossed $1.13 trillion, and the average interest rate on those balances was hovering around 21%. You cannot invest your way out of that. The S&P 500 has historically returned around 10% annualized over long periods. You're not outpacing 21% interest with a diversified index fund, not even close. Every dollar you carry on a credit card balance is actively destroying the investment returns you think you're building elsewhere. It's like running on a treadmill while someone's cutting the belt. If you have balances spread across multiple cards right now, stop thinking of them as separate problems. They are one problem. Attack the highest rate first, aggressively, and don't stop until it's gone. Trap 8, the subscription trap nobody talks about. You have subscriptions you forgot you signed up for. I'm not guessing, I'm telling you. A 2022 study from C+R Research found that consumers underestimate their monthly subscription spend by an average of $133 per month. People thought they were spending around $86 a month on subscriptions. The actual average was over $219. And here's why this matters beyond just the $133. It's not a one-time expense. That's $1,596 a year, quietly leaving your account, never working for you, not building toward anything. Multiply that over a decade, with even a modest 7% investment return on what you could have saved. And we're talking about a real number. Audit your subscriptions this week, not someday. This week, open your credit card statement, filter for recurring charges, and kill anything you haven't used in the last 30 days. Cold. No mercy. Trap 7. Ignoring fees in your investment accounts. Expense ratios are boring. I know. Stay with me. A 1% annual fee on a $500,000 portfolio is $5,000 a year. That sounds manageable until you compound it. Vanguard has published research showing that over a 30-year investment horizon, a 1% fee difference can cost an investor roughly 25% of their total ending portfolio value. On a $500,000 base that compound at 7%, you're potentially leaving somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 on the table just from fees. Not from bad picks, not from bad timing, from fees you didn't even notice. The Vanguard S&P 500 ETF, VOO, charges 0.03% in expenses. Some actively managed funds charge 1% or more, and most of them don't beat the index anyway. That is a fee you are paying to underperform. Check your 401k fund options specifically. Employer sponsored plans often have limited fund choices, and some of them are expensive. If you can swap into a lower cost index option, do it today. Look, if these first four traps are already making you rethink some decisions, that's exactly why I make this content. Hit subscribe to Amelia Invest so you don't miss what's coming next, because we go this deep every single week. Trap 6: buying too much house. The 30-year mortgage is the longest financial commitment most Americans will ever make, and a lot of people make it while looking at the maximum amount a bank will lend them as though that's a target to hit. It is not a target. Banks will approve you for more than you can comfortably afford. That's how they make money. The old rule of thumb said spend no more than 28% of your gross income on housing costs. Right now, according to the National Association of Realtors, the median American homebuyer is spending well above that threshold in most major metro areas. When your housing costs eat 40% or 45% of your income, there's almost no room to invest meaningfully, no room to weather a job loss, no room to take a risk on a business idea. You become a hostage to that house. It consumes you. Buy less house than you can afford. The freedom that comes from a manageable mortgage payment is worth more than the extra square footage. Trap 5: not understanding what you actually own. This one is uncomfortable. A lot of investors, people who consider themselves serious about money, cannot clearly explain what they own and why. They own a target date fund their HR person enrolled them in during onboarding 8 years ago. They own a financial advisor's recommendation they never questioned. They own 3 ETFs that all basically hold the same 50 stocks. When you don't understand your portfolio, you make fear-based decisions at exactly the wrong moment. You panic sell in March 2020, you chase returns in late 2021, you freeze up in 2022. According to Dalbar's annual quantitative analysis of investor behavior, the average equity fund investor has historically underperformed the S&P 500 by roughly 1.5 to 4 percentage points per year, largely because of behavioral mistakes driven by not having conviction in what they own. Conviction comes from understanding. If you cannot explain to someone why you hold what you hold in plain English, that's your homework this weekend. Trap 4: letting lifestyle creep go unchecked. You got a raise. You deserve it. Now you have a nicer car, a bigger apartment, more dinners out, better vacations, and somehow, at the end of the month, you're saving roughly the same dollar amount you were saving before the raise. That's lifestyle creep. And it's particularly nasty because it doesn't feel like a mistake, it feels like progress. The Goldman Sachs data on this is genuinely alarming. 40% of Americans earning over $500,000 a year report living paycheck to paycheck. $500,000 a year, paycheck to paycheck. The income wasn't the problem. The spending scaled with it. Thomas Stanley studied this extensively in The Millionaire Next Door. The high accumulation of wealth households he found were consistently the ones who kept their spending habits stable while income grew. Not because they were miserable minimalists, because they understood the gap between income and spending is where wealth actually lives. When you get a raise, automate a meaningful portion of it, ideally at least half, straight into investments before you ever see it in your checking account. Future, you will not miss the money. Present, you will barely notice. Trap 3: underestimating tax drag. Taxes are probably your single largest annual expense, bigger than your rent, bigger than your mortgage, bigger than everything else on your personal balance sheet, and yet, most people put roughly zero strategic thought into tax efficiency. Here are the 3 mistakes I see constantly. 1. Holding high dividend stocks in a taxable brokerage account, which means you owe income taxes on those dividends every year, whether you wanted the cash or not. 2. Not using tax loss harvesting at year end, strategically selling positions at a loss to offset realized gains can meaningfully reduce your tax bill. And most people leave this completely on the table. 3. Ignoring the long term versus short term capital gains distinction. Hold a position for longer than 12 months, and your federal tax rate on the gain drops significantly. Hold it for 11 months, and you're paying ordinary income tax rates. That can be a difference of 10 to 20 percentage points on the same gain. Max your 401k, max your IRA or Roth IRA. If you have a high deductible health plan, max your HSA. Triple tax advantaged. One of the best accounts in existence. These aren't advanced strategies. They're the table stakes of not giving the IRS more than you owe. Trap 2: confusing activity with progress. Some of the most financially busy people I know have barely moved their net worth in 5 years. They're constantly doing things, researching stocks, switching brokers, reading about real estate, thinking about starting a business, watching market content, talking about their portfolio at dinner. But the core actions that actually compound wealth: consistent saving, low cost index funds held for decades, debt reduction. Those things are boring. They don't feel like doing something. So people replace them with financial busy work. That creates the sensation of progress without the actual results. Dalbar's research we mentioned earlier isn't just about bad timing, it's also about overtrading. Every time you move in and out of positions, you're potentially triggering tax events, paying spreads, and, most importantly, interrupting compounding. The investor who put $10,000 into the S&P 500 in January 2010 and did absolutely nothing would have roughly $60,000 plus by the mid-2020s. The investor who actively traded that same starting amount, studies consistently show they'd likely have less. Boredom is a feature of good investing, not a flaw. Trap 1: no protection on the way up. This one gets skipped the most, and it can undo everything else on this list. As your net worth grows, the things that could destroy it grow too. An unexpected lawsuit, a disability that keeps you from working for 2 years, a fire in an underinsured home, a death with no life insurance, and a family that depended on your income. I'm not trying to be morbid. I'm being precise about risk. The vast majority of wealth building content talks about what to buy and when. Almost none of it talks about the defense side, the part that makes sure you don't give back what you built. Disability insurance is the one most people skip because it feels abstract. But the Social Security Administration has data showing that 1 in 4 20-year-olds will experience a disabling condition before they reach retirement age. 1 in 4. If your income stopped tomorrow for 18 months, what happens to your savings rate? What happens to your mortgage? Umbrella liability policies Usually $1 million dollars in additional coverage for around $150 to $300 a year, depending on your state, are so cheap relative to the protection they provide that not having one when you have meaningful assets is genuinely hard to justify. Review your coverage annually: home, auto, life, disability, umbrella. If your net worth has grown since you last looked at your policies, your coverage hasn't automatically kept pace. It needs to be updated. Graham Stephan's Valentine's Day insurance audit is a little quirky, but honestly, pick a recurring date and do it. The point isn't the holiday, the point is that you do it. Here's what I want you to do right now: pick the one trap on this list that you know in your gut applies to you, not theoretically, actually applies to you, and fix it this week. One change, one decision, because this stuff doesn't compound in your favor until you make a move. What trap hit closest to home? Drop it in the comments. I read them.